in front of you, you see one of the most ridiculous looking weapons known to mankind. It is a 12 link weapon. Well, technically, it is 12 link, but it's kind of 11 linked because one of the links is 40% more attack damage. So, a lot of people might be wondering how good is this weapon? Is it better than claws? So we're gonna dive into that question today. I actually spent a little bit of a time on a POB just to compare the damage between this weapon and my current claw. And the answer might be kind of surprising. It looks kind of insane, right? The weapon does look really, really crazy. It does have a lot of stuff on it, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what is the mana cost on this bad boy. So I'm gonna go over that. But before we do that, I'm gonna go over my current character and any changes I made because I think I forgot about some gem changes from yesterday. So we're gonna go more in depth into that because I was able to increase the damage. So like the damage is like pretty much the same. I initially dropped the claw mastery cluster, but then I retook it back, so I'll explain why. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so since yesterday's great changes, most of the gear is pretty much identical. I didn't really make any changes at all, but let's go over the gems real fast as I kind of forgot about it last time. So we have Whirling Blades. I'm not linking it to faster attacks anymore or life tap because I have this non-channeling skills at -7 to total mana cost. Whirling Blades only cost 3 mana and is pretty much covered by your mana regen, so we don't need to worry about that. Same thing with Hydra Spear and Precision. Hydra Spear only costs 10 mana, and we don't really put it down that often, so it doesn't really matter. Precision is still at 18. I could potentially lower it or make it higher depending on how much accuracy I have, but that's not too bad. So in the gloves links, we have Anomalous Blood Rage, Enhance, General's Cry, and Berserk. So the reason we have all of these is Enhance gives you 24% quality to your activated support gems. So what this means is that General's Cry cooldown, the quality from this is actually cooldown recovery. So you can see here that we get 22% cooldown recovery instead of 10%. So this actually helps us a lot on keeping up General's Cry in terms of maintaining our rage. So you can see here the cooldown is only 2.33 seconds. Ideally, you could potentially maybe even get it on boots, and you could have a 2-second cooldown General's Cry, which will make it a lot easier to sustain your rage for Berserk. Now, Anomalous Blood Rage we use because it actually gives us 4% chance to gain a frenzy charge when you hit a unique enemy. Now, with how fast we attack, we're pretty much going to be guaranteed to have maximum frenzy charges at all times. Now, this is actually a pretty big deal because for our boss fights, a lot of times we don't have frenzy charges. So even though the regular version of Blood Rage gives us a lot of damage, this is very, very good as well. So Berserk is the same thing. We benefit a lot from the quality. We get 24% increased attack damage, and that's just pretty insane for one gem link, and it doesn't really affect our mana cost at all. So all of these things, Blood Rage, General's Cry, and Berserk are huge benefactors of using a level 4 enhance, and a level 4 enhance is not that expensive. I think I bought this for what? Let's see how much is this. 3.2x. I think it's pretty well worth the cost. So I was able to make room for this gem link because I dropped life tap. So life tap is not really needed as long as you have a non-channeling skills at -7 to mana cost on a ring. You could also use Replica Conqueror's Efficiency if you really wanted to. Now with the War Chief, Ancestral Protector, Multi-Totems, and Culling, I could technically drop Culling if I ever got on my gloves. And the Multi-Totem, Ancestral Protector, Ancestral War Chief setup is perfectly fine. Something to note is that I think Ancestral Protector has Phantasmal Ancestral Protector, which gives you some 10% more buff effect, and then War Chief has a quality that gives you more placement speed. So I'll probably buy that today on stream. I have been kind of putting it off for quite a while. Now the links for Frost Blades are still Awaken Added Lightning Damage, Frost Blades, Anomalous Nightblade, Anomalous Inspiration, Awaken Multi-Strike, Trinity Support. And Udatol Amulet, I use Awaken Elemental Damage with attacks, and I sometimes switch it out with Chain depending on what I'm doing. And I have my auras and my boots with Enlighten 4, Divergent Skitterbots, Anger, and Determination. You can definitely min-max this more by using Divergent Determination. You can also use, I think there's an Anger that gives you move speed or something like that, which helps out a tiny bit. And now lastly, in the shield, we have cast when damage taken, molten shell. So you can always choose a different level for your molten shell, but always make sure the level requirement for these two are the same or nearly the same. But cast when damage taken has to be always higher than the level requirement of molten shell, or the molten shell won't proc. So that's why I haven't leveled up these gems. And withering step is 2123. So this just helps us reset our elusive. So you can see here is a 181. And when we attack, it resets it, or we use Whirling Blades, it will reset it. So that's how this one, Whirling Blades, resets it. So that every single time we attack, we're at maximum elusive. So overall, the gear is pretty finished, I think. I do want to try to get a better helm with more life. Oh, I did recraft Dex and Int on this. Now, the reason behind crafting Dex and Int is that I'm actually short like 8 Int. And crafting Dex gives me also some accuracy bonus, and Strength doesn't really do much. And this accuracy bonus actually brings me up to 100%, so that's pretty nice. I did get the Wither Belt enchant. I offered the person 105 exalts while the headhunter was 95x or 97. So I pretty much paid like 8 exalts premium, which is pretty much what you would play lab enchanter. I'm keeping the 45 to 68 fire damage because it turns out to be pretty strong. And yeah, so let's see. I guess people always want to see excellence, right? So I currently have like 364 exalts in my tab, and this is with a 10 chaos threshold. So I probably have enough to buy Mage Blood if I ever want to hate my life enough to sort through everything. But maybe I will do that in the coming days and try out Mage Blood on this build. But anyhow, oh, and for the tree, I did drop this Claw Mastery cluster initially, but I took it back. I went to go test it out, right? So with this Claw Mastery node, when you have the elusive, you're at 778% multi. And when you don't have this node, I think you're at like 680%. So even though in Path of Building, it doesn't show as a damage difference when you take this Claw Mastery node, it is actually a pretty big difference of like 100% multi overall. So make sure to take this node. And let's see, what else did I do? I dropped this thing here. I dropped all the crit nodes. And oh yeah, I dropped Thread of Hope. I didn't mention this yesterday, but I felt like Thread of Hope was losing a lot of its value. And it also wasted 2 points. So I spent those 2 points and stuff to take these nodes here. In the future, it is possible to maybe drop Unnatural Instinct. But I think Unnatural Instinct is kind of hard to make up. It's 30 int at the moment. So it's kind of annoying that I have this 30 int node and it feels pretty inefficient. But it could become a 5% life node. So if I can find a way to get more int somewhere, if this thing had T1 int, it's actually pretty hard to find sources of int. So right now, it seems pretty good at the moment, but there's probably some little upgrades we could end up making. We did drop Unwavering Stance again. Someone mentioned how you could get a Call to Arms Scourge on Brass Dome, but that seems kind of far-fetched considering how bad most Scourge outcomes are. We could also get a triple mod on our Watcher's Eye, but that would end up probably costing like a mirror, which is half the cost of the character. But overall, the character feels super strong at this moment. I think I dropped a little bit of attack speed. Now the reason I dropped the attack speed on this is because I felt that crit chance was more beneficial during simulacrums. But if you're not doing simulacrums with reduced effect, I would definitely take the attack speed. It'll make you clear the map faster, and you will also have more single target for anything that you actually just reach like 10 or 12 brittle on. But a lot of times in simulacrum, you're only at like 3 or 4 brittle with reduced effect of non-damaging ailments. But anyhow, let's get straight into the fun part, which is the 12-link weapon. So this 12-link weapon ends up being pretty insane looking. Now, before we start off on doing the weapon, I want to warn people that this implicit is really bad compared to the claw implicit. By using this implicit, you already lower your leech potential by an insane amount. So life leech on hit with this thing is 777.2. With the claw, it was like 1700. You could kind of make it better if you use a vitality life gain Watcher's Eye, and I think that would be the way to do it. Another thing to note is that using a sword, you don't get access to Nightblade, meaning you don't have elusive, right? So you don't have a high effective elusive. This means you can get elusive on your boots though, so your boots will need to be recrafted a little bit. Now that's not really a big problem, but not having like max effect elusive is a pretty big survivability loss because you don't have your like 40% chance to avoid all damage or something like that. So it's a pretty bad thing to use a sword, and the sword's attack speed is a little bit lower. It's not terrible, but basically sword is a lot worse than claw. The main benefit of going swords is the fact that you can take the sword mastery and get a better frenzy charge generation on bosses. This is pretty much a raider. 8% chance to get a frenzy charge when you hit a unique enemy. I think raiders is only what, like raiders 10%? No, raiders is 20% chance. So pretty much as good as a raider. You will probably have it up most of the times. So overall pretty good. But basically this tree, so like this is pretty much the exact same tree as the Frost Blades. Now the nice part about Frost Blades is that the tree I'm using is pretty weapon, like it doesn't really matter what weapon you're using, right? So it is possible to use a sword really easily. Now the best sword node is usually Blade of Cutting, that gives you crit chance, accuracy rating, and multi, and these nodes give you multi, and it's crit chance, and then you get the sword mastery. This node over here is not too bad. Brutal Blade, or Fatal Blade that is, and you could technically end up taking these nodes. In fact, this might be a better solution than this. No, it seems like pen and exposure is just too big, so take that instead. But maybe this one is worse than these nodes over here. Fatal Blade. This is actually a lot of, I feel like maybe this is better, right? 70 mil, and this one is 73 mil. Okay. So there we go. So we already found something to optimize. Now the rest of this stuff is 120%, negative 20% crit rate. That seems pretty bad. So basically we just want this. Offhand accuracy is equal to... Okay, so most of the sword mastery is pretty poop instead of that one. But basically, this is the tree. So you can see here 73 mil. That makes it around like what? Like 20 mil more than the Frost Blades. Now this is a tree that's pretty... I think it's like pretty optimized because this is pretty much the same template. So basically we ended up dropping the claw mastery. We're still using the dual large clusters. I changed out some of my clusters over to what's it called? To attack speed general instead of attack speed with claws. So most of the stuff is pretty optimized, and it ends up being a pretty fair comparison. Now the thing is, we're using the Squire here, and this is actually not really a good thing because the Squire has no life on it, and it is actually a pretty poopy shield, all things considered. And what it also means is that we will need to get this Warcry mastery thing in order to generate rage. And what this also means is that the rage generation is going to be pretty bad in comparison to using what's it called, Red Blade Banner. It is still doable to have like kind of high rage on bosses. Like you will still generate rage and you can still press Berserk, but it's not gonna feel as good at all, and it's gonna feel kind of shitty, but it's not too bad on bosses. Still, I would definitely just play it with left click General's Cry and just let it be. Whatever happens, I wouldn't try to time it at all. But you could technically also maybe use this, but generally it's not going to be as good as Warbringer because Warbringer is just a lot more consistent rage use. So this is pretty much like playing Eternity Shroud back in the day, where you would not be able to use a shaped Red Blade Banner because it didn't exist. But as you can see, the damage is pretty high. So what are the actual links that we have to end up using? So Frost Blades so I put this in a weapon, and I pretty much just gave it 27% quality because that's what the Squire ends up doing. So these are pretty much the highest gem links depending on what POB gave me. So it's Awaken added cold damage, Awaken added lightning damage, Trinity, Elemental Penetration, Inspiration. And these are all really good gem links. And this is on top of the sword already having crit strikes, ruthless, multi-strike, crit damage, and elemental damage with attacks. So you can see here the biggest difference between this is that it's just not a claw. So if you had made this weapon on a claw, I do think that it would be miles better than what I'm using currently. I don't know if it's possible to make it on a claw, but I do think that they made a big mistake in making it not on what's it called, a claw. And I kind of want to try out. I might try it out a little bit just to put it in the calculator to see what actually happens. Because not having Nightblade is absolutely huge. And the fact that it's already more damage is kind of crazy. I don't know why they made it on a Ghoul Scratch and Narkic Spirit Blade. Maybe they're trying to do some fizz thing, but this weapon is honestly just trash compared to a claw. And I don't know who's gonna be using this thing, but I think it was probably a big mistake because I would definitely have mirrored it if it was on a claw. You can see the multi is so much lower, and yeah, not being able to get elusive with Nightblade is a complete game changer. But basically, let's go see. The main thing is how much is the mana cost. The mana cost is actually only 38, so it's actually not that crazy as I thought it would be initially. So inspiration does help out a lot. So if you don't have inspiration, your mana cost will be a lot higher. So it's 38 mana cost, nothing too crazy, definitely playable, definitely higher damage. And we also have one thing that we forgot, which is that we are using a Udatol's Vow still. So what this means is that, let's see, can we actually search annoying number of annoyance? Can be annoying up to 3 times. Oh wait, it's an enchant, right? So enchant modifiers. Let's see, is this 4? This works. This has to be amulet. So this is how we look up the bricked Udatol's Vow. So this is Strangle Grasp. So because we're no longer using Udatol, we can actually use this. So let's just use a pretty normal amulet. This is not too crazy, right? Panopticon, Assassination, Throat Seeker, Heart of Ice, Disemboweling. This seems a little bit more regular. We could potentially copy this over to see how it goes. This Charisma. This one is Frenetic. Panopticon. Yeah, this was pretty cool. +1 minimum, +1. This one pretty much gives it to you all. And this is Frenetic, Whispers of Doom. These are actually pretty good amulets, right? So you can see here that being able to use another type of amulet is pretty big. We could use Tenacity. This one's pretty good in general. And yeah, so it seems like Whispers of Doom, Frenetic, Panopticon. So let's just use maybe... Wait, this guy actually got... Oh, I guess people corrupt it all the time. So pretty much these things are like free to corrupt. And it is actually a pretty good budget option in comparison to Udatol's Vow. But let's just use this one for fun, right? Because... Wait, this one is... Panopticon Frenetic. Yeah, this one seems pretty strong. Gotta create... Oh, this is actually a Warlord amulet. That's pretty nuts, but holy moly, 87 mil. So it seems like this build will be really high DPS for sure. Now, if this was made on a claw, I'm pretty sure you can get Frost Blades to 100 mil. I'm gonna try to ask the creator if they can make it a claw. I'm not sure how hard this thing is to make, but it's pretty insane, right? That swords can reach this amount of damage. And I do think there's a lot of potential. Not having to use Udatol's Vow is a huge DPS boost, and it actually helps out the build a lot. And this is even without elemental weakness on a ring. But hopefully that that shows you guys the power of the Squire with the Spirit Blade, and hopefully one day we can beat a Claw, because I do think you can get 100 mil DPS with this setup. But having the Squire can play to Red Blade Banner is kind of shitty, but we can make it work. Opening up the amulet slot does help out a little bit on the life, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, 12 League weapon is going to be OP if it's made on a claw, and it's already pretty OP on a sword because it frees up the amulet slot. It gives you a lot of damage, and the mana cost is not as bad as expected because of inspiration, but still kind of bad. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more mirrors, exalts, and mage bloods than me, and see you next time. Bye.